Just this past winter, my whole town was basically shut down. During a huge winter storm that came through, roads closed, stores closed, and everyone was just waiting it out at home. I lived in a smaller town that definitely was not prepared for big storms, both rain or snow. For 2 days, the power was in and out. It'd be on for a few hours, then get cut for however long. The phone lines were a little more stable, but still not great. On this night, the power had cut off sometime between 9 and 10 p.m. I had a bunch of random candles set up in the living room by the couch, just so I could see, and I had the windows open to watch the snowstorm, though I pretty much couldn't see anything but a cloud of white. With no power and no internet, I had nothing to do. It was about an hour and a half after the power had cut that I suddenly heard someone yelling outside. It was a man's voice, super faint because of all the wind outside, but it sounded close, like he had to be right outside my house, maybe on the sidewalk, or possibly even closer. But I had no view of anything. There was no visibility from the whiteout, so even the front yard wasn't clear. He kept yelling, though I had no idea what he was saying, and it was also strange. His voice came from the same spot right in front of my house, not moving along the sidewalk or crossing the street. It didn't sound like a call for help either, just like him trying to call out to someone, and after 20 seconds, he stopped. The voice didn't fade into the distance. He just stopped yelling. After a minute, I went back by the candles and sat down. Honestly, I didn't think anything else of it. I stayed up pretty late though, because I'd basically been napping all day with nothing to do. I was starting to get hungry though. I went to the kitchen and started searching the pantry for anything to eat. But while I was in there, I started to hear something rattling. It was distinct, and it didn't blend in with the rest of the storm outside. I moved to the hallway and looked down it. Seeing that, the front door was shaking, like shifting slightly in the door frame, as if the wind was pressing and pulling on it. I walked up slowly, still kind of confused how this was happening right now, when it had been storming all day and night without this ever happening. The wind didn't seem to have picked up at all either. The shaking, very abruptly, stopped when I was just a few feet away from the door. After a moment, I grabbed the handle and felt the door, checking if it was vibrating or something, but it wasn't. I cracked it open slightly. When I looked out, I saw footprints in the snow right up by the door. What the hell? I opened the door further and looked around, but again, I couldn't see very far at all. I also couldn't tell if these footprints had anything to do with the door shaking, or if it really was just the wind. Because these footprints could have been from whoever was out there yelling earlier in the night. I thought about trying to call the police, but my phone had no service. Not a single part of me was thinking this person had come bow up to my door for something malicious. Especially not in a storm like this, but I quickly found out how wrong I was. While I was still by the front door, I heard something horrifying. The back door slid open. It was one of those heavy sliding glass doors that I guess I'd forgotten to lock, and I could hear someone slide it open for a whole 3 seconds, fully opening it before it went silent. From where I was in the front hallway, I couldn't see back there. I stared at that corner of the wall, just terrified, waiting for someone to appear, but no one did. After an entire minute of waiting, I very slowly began walking down the hall closer to the kitchen, taking quiet, single footsteps, trying to just get far enough to peer around at the door. I saw it, wide open, just like I'd heard. But no one was in the doorway. I could see the snow flooding into the house. from the darkness outside.
I then started walking just a little further, and I could see some wet shoe prints on the floor. However, it looked like they only walked inside a few steps, probably looked around, then walked back out the door. When I got even closer, I could clearly see 2 sets of footprints out in the snow, one coming up to the house and one leaving. I closed the door and tried calling the police dozens of times. I couldn't get through. I stayed up for hours, essentially patrolling the house with a candle in my hand, making sure no one was trying to get in through any of the other windows or doors. The next day, the storm thankfully let up enough for phone lines to come back up, and also the power grid. Turned out, I wasn't the only one to have something happen. Along my neighborhood street, about 15 or so houses, 8 of them had reported someone messing with their doors last night. One guy even saw the man outside his door holding a gun in his hand. He described him as someone looking for trouble, like a psychopath, just trying to use the storm as cover for whatever he wanted to do. Of the 8 houses, though, mine was the only one he got inside of. Knowing now what he looked like, being some unhinged guy with a gun, makes it way more unsettling. Though, I can't figure out why the man didn't walk further in. Maybe he assumed the home was empty? But it was so late that it would have only been logical to assume I would be sleeping upstairs. So that theory doesn't really check out. I don't know why this happened, and seemingly, none of the neighbors on the street know either.